If the West refuses to acknowledge Ibrahim Traore as Burkina Faso's president, it may not have the impact they expect. In fact, 10 nations have already stepped forward to publicly support Traore, making it clear that Western disapproval carries little weight for them. This highlights the growing divide between how Western powers view Traore and how other regions perceive him. But why is the West so opposed to Traore? And will this resistance ever end? Let's take a closer look. Burkina Faso reached a major diplomatic milestone on November 28, 2024. In a historic gathering held in the presidential palace, representatives from 10 nations officially recognized Ibrahim Traore as the rightful leader of Burkina Faso. This was more than just a diplomatic formality. It was a statement of defiance against external pressure and a show of confidence in Burkina Faso's sovereignty. This moment carried deep significance. It was not just about confirming Traore's leadership, but about the country's determination to push forward, despite ongoing security threats and external interference. For Traore, a former military commander turned political leader, this was a moment of validation. It was proof that, despite opposition, Burkina Faso was gaining recognition as a key player on the international stage. Western refusal to acknowledge Traore reflects larger geopolitical struggles and Africa's long history of foreign interference. But the firm backing from these 10 nations sends a powerful message. Burkina Faso's sovereignty must be respected, and its people have the right to determine their own future. In the days leading up to this event, analysts speculated about whether these nations would stand by Traore despite Western resistance. The answer became clear that June afternoon. Diplomats from Africa, Asia, and Latin America stood together, applauding as Traore took the stage. Their support was not just for him as a leader, but for Burkina Faso's right to carve its own path. Since gaining independence in 1960, Burkina Faso has faced decades of political instability, military coups, and economic hardship. Now, with Traore at the helm, many hope for a new era of stability and growth. The presence of international ambassadors at the event signaled a shift. Burkina Faso was no longer just dealing with its own internal struggles. It was reclaiming its voice in global affairs. The West, however, refuses to recognize Traore, citing concerns over democracy, electoral integrity, and human rights. Critics argue that his rise to power was marked by military takeovers rather than democratic elections, raising doubts about his legitimacy. They claim voter suppression and political intimidation played a role in solidifying his rule. But the nations that stood with Burkina Faso that day saw things differently. To them, the Burkinabe people had made their choice, and Traore's leadership represented their desire for stability and progress. These nations were not just backing Traore as an individual, they were standing up for the principle that African nations should be free to govern themselves without foreign interference. The ceremony itself was both dignified and symbolic. Diplomats from countries such as Russia, Algeria, Rwanda, and Germany presented their credentials to Traore, officially recognizing his leadership. Their presence reinforced the idea that Burkina Faso was building new alliances beyond the traditional Western sphere of influence. So why is the West so resistant to accepting Traore as Burkina Faso's president? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you're interested in Africa's history and ongoing fight for sovereignty, be sure to subscribe to our channel. By doing so, you're not just staying informed, you're joining a movement to restore Africa's rightful place on the global stage. Now, let's go deeper. The West's reluctance to recognize Traore isn't just about political formalities, it's about power, influence, and control. Western governments are uncomfortable with the way Traore came to power, believing that leadership transitions should happen through elections rather than military intervention. His rise involved two coups, one in January 2022 against President Marc Christian Kabore, and another in September 2022 against interim leader Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba. To Western leaders, these events disrupted Burkina Faso's democratic process and set a precedent they find troubling. Since Traore was not elected through a formal vote, they question his legitimacy as a leader. But the bigger question is, why does this matter so much to the West? After all, history shows that Western powers have supported unelected leaders when it suited their interests. Beyond concerns about democracy, Traore's leadership style has also raised alarms in Western circles. He has taken strong measures against foreign influence, restricting access to international media and strengthening state control over information. Some critics accuse him of using propaganda to consolidate power, painting his leadership as a fight against imperialism while tightening his grip on the country. This situation directly clashes with the democratic values that the West claims to uphold. Concerns about human rights and political freedom in Burkina Faso have grown, particularly due to restrictions on the media and the suppression of dissenting voices. Many Western governments view these actions as signs of democratic backsliding, making them wary of Traore's leadership. One of the biggest reasons for Western unease is Traore's shift in foreign alliances. Instead of maintaining close ties with traditional Western partners, especially France, he has been strengthening Burkina Faso's relationship with Russia. This was made evident by the expulsion of French troops and the reopening of a Russian diplomatic mission in the country. His participation in the Russia-Africa Summit further underscored this realignment. Given the ongoing tensions between Russia and Western nations, Traore's pivot is seen as a direct challenge to Western influence in West Africa, threatening their long-standing political and economic interests in the region. Adding to this unease are Traore's ambitious declarations. He has pledged to develop nuclear energy, manufacture electric vehicles, and make Burkina Faso fully self-sufficient in food production. While these promises have been met with skepticism in Western circles, they resonate deeply with many Burkinabés and other Africans who desire self-reliance and economic independence. His strong anti-colonial stance has further inflamed tensions as he openly rejects Western pressure and calls on African leaders to utilize their natural resources for the benefit of their own people. This challenges the historical power dynamics between Africa and the West, reinforcing a broader movement across the continent that seeks true sovereignty over African wealth and decision-making. To Western policymakers, this rhetoric represents a direct threat to their strategic interests. Yet, despite their disapproval, Traore has received formal recognition and backing from 10 countries, proving that the West does not speak for the entire international community. Many nations still view Burkina Faso as a valuable partner, given its influence in regional affairs and its strategic importance in West Africa. Historically, Burkina Faso has played an active role in international organizations, strengthened ties with its neighbors, and maintained a record of democratic governance. In fact, with USAID's support, the country held its first free and fair elections in 2015, followed by municipal elections in 2016. While the current political landscape is turbulent, Burkina Faso's previous commitment to democracy continues to attract countries that value governance reform and institutional stability in Africa. The United States and several European nations have long believed that democratic leadership is essential for ensuring human rights, economic growth, and long-term stability, principles that shape their foreign policies and partnerships. Beyond its political significance, Burkina Faso's vast mineral wealth makes it a highly sought-after partner on the global stage. The country's economy heavily depends on gold, its top export, but it also boasts significant deposits of manganese, zinc, phosphate, silver, and diamonds. These resources make Burkina Faso an attractive destination for foreign investors, particularly in the mining sector. International corporations see lucrative opportunities in its gold industry, while nations interested in securing access to critical minerals view Burkina Faso as a key economic player. Beyond generating profits for foreign investors, the mining sector is also a cornerstone of the country's economy, providing employment and contributing to national revenue. Under the leadership of former President Blaise Compaoré, Burkina Faso played a key role as a regional mediator in West Africa, actively working to resolve political disputes and promote peace in neighboring countries like Togo and Niger. Due to its influence and diplomatic engagement, Burkina Faso has been a valuable partner for nations with strategic interests in the Sahel region. Ensuring stability in this volatile area, which includes countries such as Mali, Niger, and Chad, is crucial for maintaining regional security. Burkina Faso's importance extends beyond its borders, as it has consistently participated in regional diplomacy and conflict resolution efforts. In recent years, it has strengthened its relationships with neighboring West African nations, particularly Ghana, fostering deeper cooperation across multiple sectors. It also successfully mediated a territorial dispute with Mali, helping to ease tensions and encourage peaceful relations. This ability to build and maintain diplomatic ties makes Burkina Faso an attractive ally for countries that prioritize regional stability and collaboration. Stronger regional connections contribute to sustainable growth, economic progress, and collective security, all of which are essential for the prosperity of West Africa. Beyond regional diplomacy, Burkina Faso is also deeply engaged with the international community. The country actively participates in organizations such as the Liptako Gourma Authority and the International Criminal Court, which allows it to voice its concerns, collaborate on global and regional issues, and attract development support. Its commitment to international cooperation enhances its global standing and strengthens its role in addressing broader geopolitical challenges. Nations that value multilateralism and international partnerships recognize Burkina Faso's growing influence on the world stage. Being involved in these organizations not only boosts its diplomatic credibility, but also provides access to resources that aid in economic development and humanitarian assistance. Despite its wealth of natural resources, Burkina Faso faces significant developmental challenges, including food insecurity, poverty, and inadequate infrastructure. To address these issues, various countries and international organizations have stepped in with aid programs, technical support, and development initiatives. Economic growth benefits not only the people of Burkina Faso, but also foreign investors and partners by fostering a stable and prosperous business environment. So why is the West hesitant to acknowledge Burkina Faso's potential for cooperation and development? Why does it refuse to recognize Ibrahim Traore's leadership and build relations with his government, despite the opportunities for mutual growth? The answer lies in the way Western nations typically engage in international relations, often prioritizing their own interests over fair and balanced partnerships. Traore's vision for Burkina Faso challenges this traditional approach by demanding more equitable cooperation. Historically, Western nations have dealt with resource-rich African countries in ways that favor their own geopolitical and economic agendas. They have often viewed nations like Burkina Faso primarily as sources of raw materials, securing deals that benefit Western corporations while offering little in return to local economies. Whether through trade agreements, investment projects, or mining contracts, these arrangements have typically prioritized Western profits, sometimes at the expense of the very nations providing the resources. The West aims to retain political sway over African countries in addition to its economic objectives. Through this control, African policies are guaranteed to be in line with Western geopolitical objectives, including access to Western markets, regional security, and counterterrorism initiatives. Western countries frequently impose conditions on development aid, calling for changes to policies that advance their larger political and economic goals. These conditions can guarantee that help is in line with Western goals while also restricting the sovereignty of the recipient nation. This conventional approach contrasts sharply with Ibrahim Traore's vision for Burkina Faso. He promotes forming alliances that are actually advantageous to both parties, obtaining substantial assistance for Burkina Faso's growth while guaranteeing the country a just portion of the riches produced by its resources. In an effort to lessen reliance on outside influence and assistance, Traore highlights the significance of Burkina Faso's independence and sovereignty. He supports homegrown businesses and seeks to utilize Burkina Faso's resources for the country's own development. Traore's strategy stems from a resolute anti-colonial position. He exhorts African countries to seize their own riches and strategic resources and to resist neo-colonial influence. Instead of permitting other Western nations or former colonial powers to take advantage of them for personal benefit. The old Western approach, which frequently leads to an unequal distribution of gains from connections with African nations, is directly challenged by this vision. Traore challenges the established dynamics that have long supported Western interests by promoting partnerships founded on justice and respect for one another. The long-standing advantages enjoyed by Western corporations are in jeopardy due to Traore's advocacy for more equitable agreements over Burkina Faso's natural resources. The fact that so many other countries acknowledge and back his leadership, particularly those that can provide Burkina Faso with a route to prosperity, is what really counts. Rising powers and other non-Western nations are willing to cooperate with Traore's administration. They appreciate collaborations that uphold Burkina Faso's sovereignty and seek to support its actual economic development. Western fears are heightened by Traore's support for non-Western nations like Russia. He challenges the historical influence that Western countries have had over African politics by advocating for economic independence and self-reliance, while lowering dependency on Western handouts. By encouraging indigenous industries and self-sufficiency, Traore lessens Burkina Faso's reliance on financial assistance from the West. As a result, Western nations have been hesitant to negotiate with Traore's government. By taking actions like imposing fines and reducing funding, they have voiced their discontent and put pressure on policymakers to amend laws to suit their needs. Traore's ascent to power through a coup and his alleged authoritarian tendencies are frequently portrayed negatively in Western media and political discourse, which minimizes his calls for more equitable relationships and his anti-colonial position. The West's refusal to officially recognize Ibrahim Traore as Burkina Faso's legitimate leader is a strategic move, but in reality it holds little weight in shaping the country's future. What truly matters is the growing support he receives from other nations, especially those that can offer real opportunities for Burkina Faso's progress. Many rising powers and non-Western nations see Traore's leadership as an opportunity for balanced and mutually beneficial partnerships. Unlike traditional Western engagements, which often come with hidden agendas, these nations respect Burkina Faso's sovereignty and are willing to invest in its long-term development. Countries like China, Russia, and various Asian and African nations are stepping forward to finance infrastructure projects, strengthen the mining sector, and contribute to other crucial areas of economic growth. For instance, Burkina Faso's gold mining industry has long been plagued by exploitative conditions, where local workers endure harsh, unsafe environments reminiscent of colonial-era labor practices. Under Traore's leadership, there is hope that these injustices will be addressed through stronger labor protections, better wages, and broader economic reforms that create sustainable job opportunities. The support of these international partners is essential for Burkina Faso's future. Their investments have the potential to uplift living standards, accelerate industrial growth, and reduce the country's reliance on Western aid. Unlike past Western agreements that often left African nations dependent and vulnerable, these new partnerships emphasize knowledge sharing, technology transfer, and self-reliance. By learning from nations that have successfully managed their own resources and built strong economies, Burkina Faso can carve out an independent path toward prosperity. Traore's vision is clear. Burkina Faso must break free from the remnants of neocolonialism and use its own resources for its people's benefit. Strengthening alliances outside the traditional Western sphere is a crucial step toward that goal. The shifting global landscape suggests that Western dominance in Africa is weakening. But how will the West respond? Will it intensify its efforts to undermine Burkina Faso's leadership through misinformation and economic pressure? Or will it be forced to accept this new reality? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We explore Africa's rich history, cultural resilience, and ongoing fight for true independence in depth. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Together, we can challenge the narrative, spark meaningful discussions, and inspire real change. Thank you for watching.